If your vehicle is having a rusted out rear shock mount and you're looking for a quick, cost effective, and permanent repair, our reinforcement bracket kit is the solution. This tutorial will show you how the complete repair is done in just 2 hours using basic tools and knowledge. This mainly concerns Ford Escapes, Mazda Tributes, Mercury Mariners, and other vehicles built off the same body structure between 2001 and 2012, on which they've used a poor quality undercoating in the wheel wells, which over time loses elasticity and flakes off into pieces, exposing the metal of the body panel to the elements. From then, it's just a matter of time until the rust spreads around the shock mount, causing it to slowly tear off and often to detach completely from the rest of the body. Now, see for yourself why exactly the part that you need to fix this is not the body panel that has failed. Intriguing, isn't it? Here's how to take a look on your own vehicle. First off, using only your hands, pull off the long plastic trim at the edge of the trunk and the pin at the bottom of the rear passenger door that overlaps the wall panel. Once this is done, you can pop off the wall panel by sliding your fingers behind and shaking it off lightly. Underneath the panel, some models have a noise-dampening cover on the wheel arch, and some have a sound module screwed on the body. Move them out to see the best insight in the spreading of the rust on the inner body. Each affected vehicle has a different rust pattern. This one is starting beside the shock mount towards the rear, and we've got another major rust spot on the upper edge of the wheel arch panel, and that's a very good, visible example of why welding in a new panel would be way tougher than we would have thought. Our experience with these vehicles tells us that the rust often goes further than you think on the edges, and the metal is weaker than you'd need for welding, so welding is either a real pain or would only postpone the problem further in the wheel well. It often seems like it's just paint bubbling at the surface, but it's a matter of time until it's rusted through, and then all around the shock mount to let it tear off completely, just like we've seen on a tremendous number of vehicles, just like yours. The good news is we've come up with a perfect solution, tested and guaranteed. Our shock mount reinforcement bracket kit. Specifically designed for your vehicle year and model, this kit includes a heavy-duty bracket that bolts to the vehicle's frame rail and fits perfectly between the shock and shock mount, creating a very strong support for the shock. That allows using a combination of fiberglass and rubber coating for sealing the fender against water infiltrations, salt, dust, and road debris, preventing rust for years to come. All of that using basic tools and materials that are found in most hardware stores for a few dollars. Of course, the installation steps are detailed in our comprehensive instruction manual that comes with the kit, and we're going to show the whole process in video in a few seconds, using the most basic tools possible. If you want to have a look at the installation manual, compatibility information, or shop section, visit our website at bssautoparts.com. Let's start with the first step. Remove the inner trim and lift the vehicle. Assuming you've watched the first minutes of this video, you know how to remove the interior trim. Now, you may be in a situation where you want to move the vehicle a short distance before jacking it for the repair. As the shock does not support the weight of the vehicle, it is fairly safe to move it without the shock for a short distance and at low speed. If the shock mount is completely detached from the body, all you have to do is to unbolt the lower end of the shock, either a 13/16 or a 15/16 nut, depending on the year model. And once this is done, you can generally pull off the shock and mount assembly above the wheel without even lifting the vehicle. Otherwise, remove the shock from the inside. Optionally, remove the trunk floor panel with a 15mm socket to clear out the working space. And finally, if you don't have a professional lifting device, you can use your screw jack with blocks to raise the vehicle 3 to 4 inches higher than you would when normally changing the wheel with the shock on. Use jack stands and take precautions to prevent any movement of the vehicle during the repair, and remove the wheel to clear the working space. Now, on to step 2. Remove the rust, dirt, and loose material. Again, each vehicle will have a different rust pattern, but what's important at this step is to clean out anything that is not bonded to the surfaces that you choose to repair with fiberglass or seal with rubber spray afterward. You'll encounter 2 different types of coating materials. On the frame rail, you'll have a thin coat that peels much like a paint, while higher in the wheel well, you'll have sections of a thicker layer of gravel guard that crumble to pieces. You can use a grinder with a wire wheel attachment to brush the rust and dirt off the surface. Here we see the driver's side as an example. and it's also nice to use a smaller tool to scrape the small spots that would be hard to clean with a larger tool. Of course, the more rust you remove, the better, but the idea here is not to get a shiny metal surface everywhere, but just to remove what's loose in the areas that you plan on repairing and protecting, so you may end up deciding to leave small spots of surface rust that won't make any real difference in the bonding as long as the surface is dry and solid. Now on to step 3, position and install the bracket. Installing the bracket and the included frame shim is easier when using a clamping tool to secure them on the frame where the shock hole in the bracket meets the hole in the shock mount. Notice how the shim sits between the bracket and the side of the frame rail, and that there's a space over it to allow for a small bulge on the frame near the actual wheel arch panel. This is one of the many small details in the design of this kit that make it fit perfectly every time. Now, if your shock mount has detached completely from the body, you still want to clean the dirt off of it because it will remain in the assembly. Of course, it won't play the same structural role for the suspension anymore, but by placing it on top of the reinforcement bracket, you'll simplify the work to seal the fender, and you'll be able to use it to find the right spot for the bracket on the frame by matching the mount to the body around it. Use the assembly clamped on the frame to guide a 3/8 drill bit through both sides of the frame rail. A standard length bit for soft metals with a drip of oil will work just fine. Once each hole is drilled, place a bolt in it before drilling the next hole to prevent any movement and ensure a perfect drilling pattern. Tighten the lock nuts with the washers from the other side of the frame. Whether you install the reinforcement bracket as a preventive maintenance on a shock mount that is still in place, or as a repair solution on one that is partially or completely detached, squeeze the shock mount and the bracket all together using the shock with the included bushings to reinforce the body structure. Once this is done, you're ready to proceed to step 4, sealing and protecting the fender. So at this step, we're creating a patch that will not only cover the holes that were created in the fender, but also seal the bare metal surface, keeping the water and oxygen out to prevent any further corrosion. This is done using a combination of 3 materials that are found in most hardware stores. The first one is a fiberglass cloth. We recommend a woven cloth instead of a chopped strand mat for an easy application and better results. They generally come in 8 square foot pieces for about $5, enough for one side of the vehicle. Second is a container of fiberglass resin, also known as polyester resin, and the hardener that comes with it. For one side, you'll get a quart for around $15. These two are used together to create fiberglass, a super strong material that's used for all sorts of applications, from cars to boats to planes. The third and last is a rubberized undercoating spray can for another $5. If you have the option, choose one formulated for wheel wells, as it will maintain a better elasticity and resist chipping by road debris. With these amounts, you should have more than you need for one side of the vehicle. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all template to cut the cloth. It all depends on what you have in front of you. Lean the cloth over the areas that you want to repair and mark the cloth using a marker before cutting it with scissors. Of course, the larger you cover with fiberglass, the better, but you only really need fiberglass where you want to recreate the body structure. We recommend covering the shock mount completely, as well as any hole in the wheel well, and adding an extra 2 or 3 inches all around to get a super bond with the rest of the body. You also want to pre-cut a hole around the top of the shock and avoid putting resin on it. And while you're at it, pre-cut a total of 3 pieces, like this one for each layer that you're going to put. When you have your 3 pieces pre-cut, you're ready to mix the resin and hardener. Make 5 ounces of mix per layer per square foot, always in small batches at a time. Using a brush, quickly apply a light coat, about 1/3 of your batch, on the surface under the cloth, and lay the pre-cut cloth over it. Apply the other 2/3 of your mixture over the cloth. A dabbing motion will help saturate the cloth and remove air pockets. No need to wait for the resin mix to cure between layers. You even get a better bond between them when they're applied successively. The hardener reacts with the resin, causing it to cure quickly, so change your brush and mixing container between coats. In each coat, the combination of cloth and resin mixture will give the patch its strength. A total of 3 layers is recommended for a huge resistance to cracking or chipping. Once the 3 layers have cured, apply the rubber coating spray all over the wheel well from the outside and from the inside on any metal surface that you want to seal against rust. Since fiberglass is already a material that doesn't rust, Applying rubber coating on the fiberglass inside has no effect on rust protection. However, this will have the interesting effect of blocking any smell from the resin in a matter of minutes, and it's also noise dampening. So the end result is an extremely sturdy fender, protected against further rusting, and a safe, reinforced suspension with identical performance and characteristics as the original. All that in 2 hours with basic tools. We back our products with a full lifetime warranty, tested and guaranteed. For more information, visit us online at bssautoparts.com.